Solidarity, comrades. Today I wanted to talk about a testy subject within the United States circle, and it is the recent elections. Um, not just the recent elections, but how it involves the international community. Um, Donald Trump winning means that his racist, misogynistic bigotry has really taken hold across the white labor aristocracy and the bourgeois class of the United States. Uh, this is typical of the United States politics, and it has been for since its inception. You know, George Washington was a slave owner and bourgeois racist, and it persists to this very day. Um, Really, the topic I wanted to talk about is that these politicians, Trump, Hillary, all United States or liberal democracy politicians, uh, base their ideology on the fact that they're going to make the country better. And while they will uh, make their economy better, Trump excluded, I don't know, what his failure to understand capitalist economics is, well, laughable. Um, but the real issue is how does the United States gain its wealth? The United States gains its wealth through the exploitation of cheap labor through economic imperialism, while exploiting cheap labor in the third world, like in exploited nations like Africa and Asia, and anything that isn't white Europe or the United States. And I think that the main issue here is the how long can capitalism persist under the liberal bourgeois democracy? And it can't persist. Anyone who knows basic Marxism knows that labor creates value. And labor is not infinite. And capitalism requires infinite expansion in order for it to exist. So, what happens when you run out of labor to exploit? That means that capitalism has run out of room to expand. What happens when you run out of labor to expand? The capitalist system collapses. And once the capitalist system collapses, you have two options. You have a very dangerous option. That option is a fascist option. It is a racist option. It is the, what do they call it? The third position that many fascists hope to combat the collapse of capitalism. Or you have socialism, which, if you're a Marxist, you understand is the if you understand dialectical materialism, you understand that the primary contradiction to socialism is capitalism, and the highest form of capitalism is imperialism. And once that labor of ever expanding capitalism runs out, once they run out of countries to strip of their labor, once they run out of nations to strip of their labor, their resources, they run out of countries to invade. They run out of that evil significant other that they always have counted on as that other evil to combat. uh, what happens to capitalism? It collapses. And once capitalism collapses, there's, like I said, only two options. The first option is the third position fascism, which, if you look at historical materialism, you can see that failed. You can see that it failed in Italy. Italian fascism failed. You can see that it's failed in Nazi Germany. You can see that this new wave of alt-right banking on this anti-immigration racist vitriol, uh, it it doesn't work. If you look at it in a materialist point of view, the only solution once capitalism collapses is to build socialism, because that is the contradiction, the dialectical contradiction to capitalism. And so once we run out of states to exploit, we run out of nations to exploit, we run out of exploited people, exploited labor, exploited countries to invade economically or through arms, then what do you have left? What you have left is a system that is doomed to fail. And what we need to do as socialist and communists is to organize, educate, and agitate. Organization and education is our main goal in this current situation. We need to organize. Now, me not living in the United States, it's very difficult for me to organize the working classes of nations, oppressed nations. In the United States, for example, the oppressed black nations, the oppressed Latino nations, the oppressed minority nations of the United States, the LGBTQ, sorry if I messed that up. I am absolutely sorry about that, but if we organize these oppressed classes and we build a basis of education of these exploited nations, then we have an opportunity to be ready for the collapse of capitalism. The Marxist ideal, not ideal, the Marxist point of view is that, yes, this current system that we live under, the liberal democracies based on capitalism, will collapse. That is a materialist fact. That is a Marxist fact. We look at the history of Marxism. Every system, from feudalism to barbarism to mercantilism to the current liberal democracy, it will collapse. That is just, Marxism 101. And what we need to do is organize, agitate, and take action, militant action. And I don't, in the first world, in imperialist nations, militant action doesn't mean grab your rifles and start rebelling against the United States government. It means to take direct action through agitation and education. And once that system collapses, that imperialist system collapses, we need to be ready to fight. We need to be ready to combat this new stage of transition from capitalism to socialism. Otherwise, we will be stuck with the third position fascist point of view, the alt-right third position fascist point of view. And I think it's essential that all Marxists, socialists, communists need to be ready to organize and agitate. I know this is not a very in-depth video. Labor is not infinite, but capitalism needs to keep expanding infinitely to exist. And labor creates value. Capitalism needs that labor to persist. And if it doesn't persist, and there's not an infinite amount of labor. So once you run out of labor and states and oppressed nations to exploit, then what's going to happen in capitalism? It will collapse. So what we need to do is organize and educate. Education is one of our main goals. And I hope that communists realize that. There's a lot of communists within the Western world, Euro-communists, for example, Trotskyists, for example, that fail to realize this. And I think that from a dialectical materialist point of view, the Marxist Leninist point of view, that we need to be ready for the collapse of capitalism. Because once imperialism, which derives its power from exploiting labor and invading countries for that labor and for their resources, that's not going to last forever. That's not infinite. But capitalism relies on infinite growth. And we see just anyone who understands basic capitalist economics knows this. And once this happens, there's no solution other than revolution. The only solution is revolution. But I know this wasn't a very good video. I know I haven't put one out in a while. Been very busy with work. But I really feel like that, with current events in the world, that I should put out this video. And I hope that many like-minded communists can, even if they already know this, it's good to get this word out. Even if one person sees this video and says, well, that makes sense. Maybe I should look into this. I think that I've done maybe a little bit of help. If you have any questions or critiques of what I've said, please leave a comment below. And thank you for watching, and solidarity, comrades.